Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Geoff Dover. With me is John Barban. Let's talk football.
All right, we're going to talk about some of the teams or players we think are losers so far in free agency. And I don't know, like based on choices, potential for winning. I don't know, based on
A lot
our
of stuff to look at. A lot of stuff, a lot
Yeah,
of movements
lots.
happened in the last week. So felt like it was important to talk about.
Yeah. So I think we should hit the first two most noteworthy ones that are right on our thumbnail, Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. Now, individually, they both won with their contracts, but I put them on the thumbnail with the title losers because they've chosen to be on a losing franchise. Now, Max Crosby, okay, let's start with Garrett. Garrett, and with all of his talk about wanting to go somewhere to win, and then as soon as the Browns backed up the dump truck of money, he stuck with the Browns. They're still buried under dead cap hit, or not. I guess it's not dead cap hit. Might as well be on Watson.
Yeah, it's absolutely no. It's a terrible look for Garrett, like because it's also something like you didn't have to say, like that's a real specific thing. Like I want to win a championship, because that immediately sort of eliminates a third of the teams that you could be on, because there's going into the season there's at least a third that really aren't planning on having a chance, like Super Bowl champions. And so he didn't have to say that. He could just say, like, I'm looking for the best opportunity or something. Like, it could have been more general. So it was really, it just looks, it's going to be extra hard if you're a Browns fan and the team struggles this year, which is entirely possible. You're not going to celebrate when Myles Garrett plays well, because that's like a lot of money that could have helped other positions. Like, it's a lot to invest in one position. He's great.
Yes. But top of, first of all, you don't have a quarterback. You have a massive cap hit on your loser Watson quarterback contract. Yep. And then you max out a defensive end, but you still don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I'll be surprised if they finish much over 500 like this year. So
can you even guess who's going to play quarterback there?
No. And so I don't get it. Like it'd be tough to lose a player of that caliber, but I mean,
they have to accept the fact that they're in full on rebuild.
Yeah. I also think that to your point, like, so he made a point of saying, I want to compete for championships or want to be on a competitive team or something like that. And he didn't. But he just took the money. Okay. Yeah. So what version of Myles Garrett are we going to get this year? It's like when the team starts like 2-6 or something, is he still going to be lighting it up as much, or like, what's his motivation going to be like? I don't know.
I think his motivation will be in the toilet, because he'll realize he has no chance at winning here.
It'd be hard not to. Like that. They're professional athletes, and there's always losing teams, and it's always really like still competitive. Like there's still upsets late in the season with, but I'll be surprised if he has as good a year this year as last year.
It might turn out like Bosa. He has his amazing year, signs, and then he's just ho-hum after that.
Yeah,
ho-hum for their standard. He's still going to be a top, I don't know, 5 or 10. Or there might be
a lingering injury.
Yeah, but not at his standard. Also, he's this is going into his 9th season.
Yeah,
8 or 9.
So like that.
This is it. This is the last 4 years where he's going to be what you would call elite, if he can even keep up that pace for the next 4 on a team that I can't see how they're possibly even going to make the playoffs in the next 4 years. I mean, it all hinges on a QB. I mean, this is a QB first league. Without a QB, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the team is.
There is some exceptions. If you have an average QB and amazing everything else, it's possible to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
But everything else has to be there, and and they're not in that category.
And it needs to be generational, like the '85 Bears, or the
Steelers,
Ravens.
Neil O'Donnell, I want to say at one time,
and
right?
Then the Ravens.
But dominant defense, really good running game.
Comes along once every 20 years.
Yeah,
a team like that.
Yeah, like dominant running game, dominant defense, and then a QB that just doesn't passes enough. It doesn't make mistakes to keep it's possible, but like that's
actually, I think that has done a disservice to the league. Trent Dilfer winning the Super Bowl like that has totally done a disservice to the league, because GMs cling. I think this is a theory. Just go with it here.
Sure.
I think GMs look at that thinking we can build a team just with a serviceable quarterback. Actually, okay, I'm going to go on a rant here. That concept of a stellar team around just a serviceable quarterback and seeing it actually happen and actually win a Super Bowl, I think has led to Kirk Cousins making $350 million over his career, because he looks like a serviceable quarterback. The guy has one playoff win in his entire career. Tim Tebow has one playoff win.
Very true.
If you want to go head to head on playoff wins.
Yep.
So, and everyone thinks Tebow can't play quarterback. Cousins doesn't have any more playoff wins than Tebow does. And Tebow didn't his first year. So you're thinking so Cousins has that, like, oh, he understands, he's smart, he knows how to run the offense, guys follow him, all this stuff. He's not a winner, and he never was, and he's just not a winner. Yet he's made $350 million in his career, and probably going to get, who knows, he might end up on the Browns. They don't, nobody else.
Yeah, Trent Dilfer never passed for more than 2,800 yards.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the Cousins is a better QB, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're,
But you need a generational
right.
defense.
Like,
generational. I mean, they compared that defense to the 85 Bears. Like, that's how good it has to be. So if
that's a great call looking up Trent Dilfer. So this was in 1995. It was a long time ago. 16 games he played in, passed for 2,700 yards, had 4 TDs, 18 picks. Oh, that's rough.
Jesus.
And 47 sacks. Like, that would have been, that's a rough season.
Anyways, the point is the Browns aren't that.
Yeah.
Like, no. the only way you sign this, and same with the Raiders and Crosby.
Yeah. I felt slightly different about them, but so finish your point about the
we'll finish the Browns. He took a bunch of money, which is good for his individual life. Great. But his nonsense about coming out publicly, like you said, I want to win. No, you don't. You've just sealed the fate of the Browns, because between the money left on Watson's contract and your new contract, this team has zero chance.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
That's it. It's over. You're never going to win a championship at Cleveland unless somehow this year and next year Cleveland hits on 20 draft picks.
I don't know. I don't even know how many they have. Yeah,
well, whatever it is. They would need to hit like a Jaden Daniels pick right now, and he would need to show up and play like Jaden Daniels right now. They would need to hit. They would just need to hit on so many things. I mean, I guess it's possible to hit on a bunch. I mean, Daniels hit. He himself did hit. So it's always possible. And you don't need the number 1 pick. Brock Purdy hit. Brock Purdy made it to the NFC Championship game his first year. So it's possible, but that's not a game plan.
No. The
game plan isn't let's just hope we hit a home run somewhere in the draft on a QB, especially in a draft class where the QBs are like, meh.
Yeah. Well, and you're exactly right. They're hoping to hit on a draft pick. And really what the plan would be is to have an amazing, second round draft pick of someone that turns out to be a complete stud. And it also has a twin brother that we didn't know that is also going to the team now, like, and plays the same position or something, like stuff like that's really what they need to have happen right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
I feel differently about the Raiders. I feel differently about the Raiders because based on our last show, I think the Geno Smith thing's a good move. I think having it's a little bit older QB, a little bit more, but he's been pretty consistent in Seattle. Like, I think know what you're getting with him. And the Raiders have some interesting pieces around them. So I feel like the Raiders outlook is significantly better than the Browns. So to me, it makes the Crosby thing a bit better. He is a dominant defensive end.
Yes.
That is going to be important in the playoffs if you can get to the playoffs and you're going to need some pressure. That was a good article I read the other day about that was one of the things they think that hurt Buffalo this year. Like, the one thing they were missing was a good defensive end, because when you have to have that QB pressure at some point, they didn't really have anyone to step up to do that. Same thing with the Lions. Like, they had a lot of injuries. And so that when it came to playoff time, that not quite is the pressure that you would have liked to have from the defensive line at that point. So, but no, I feel better about them, and but that's also it's a risky move for the Raiders, because it's a lot of money going to one person.
Yeah. Now, they did come into this with a lot of cap space.
Yeah. Still have about, according to overthecap.com, they have almost $47 million left of cap space, which is pretty good.
But Crosby took a bunch of money to stay on a team that is the 4th best team in its division, with the 4th best quarterback in its division. And let's think about this. You think you're going to beat Mahomes, that Bo Nix, or Justin Herbert with Geno Smith. Actually, like if you just line all three of those up, you're already in fourth place, even with Geno Smith. And I still put Knicks ahead of him. Knicks went to the playoffs. Knicks is better than Smith already, and he's going to keep getting better. So you've committed to a team that's decidedly fourth place in your division as it is. And now you do have a Super Bowl winning coach, but he's also kind of at the end of his line here. But you could say the same thing about Peyton, and all of them they're all older coaches. They all know what they're doing. But because I had a couple of people mentioned in our comment section, they thought, what do they do? They're not getting anywhere on that team. So when we were talking about the Raiders being interesting, our last episode, some people were like, yeah, in a division, they're fourth in the division. They're still going to be fourth. And Geno Smith is decidedly the fourth best quarterback in that division. So I kind of thought, oh yeah, you're right. And the Chargers have made a big move they stepped up last year. Now they got their doors blown off in the playoffs, but they're just going to keep improving. The Broncos made the playoffs, surprisingly, a little bit with Knicks, but Knicks looks like he's legit, and they're just going to keep getting better. The Chiefs are the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So where do you fit it? I mean, for this to feel like a real shot on the Raiders, that can't be Geno Smith at QB. That has to have been, I don't know, one of the top 6 or 7. Like if Stafford went there, then you're like, oh, hang on, I think we can compete now. You know what? Like just forget about everything else. Quarterback to quarterback, you just have the worst quarterback in the division, and that division already sent 3 people to the playoffs. How on earth? One of those other 3 teams, you said this last episode, one of those other 3 teams has to fall. Which one's falling?
Yeah, I could see either the Chargers or the Chiefs coming back a little bit. So
from
just in terms of the standing, yeah, it's hard to go up. It's hard to go up.
Can't go up. You're right.
You're right. Go back a little bit. Yeah. So I'm not wrong on that.
No,
I think they could finish like second or get a wild card playoff spot or something. It's possible. I think.
The Raiders?
Yeah.
I mean, I want them to.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, I want them to. It just seems like
it feels really different if they were in the same division as the Steelers, Bengals, and Browns. Because then you'd be like, well, I feel there's a good chance they're going to finish first.
Or the South. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got their money, but it just seems like they've both committed to teams that probably aren't going anywhere. But I hope the Raiders have something more going on than the Browns. The Browns are just a mess. That's just what a mess of a franchise. They're going nowhere. And
it was I was thinking about playing for a losing team, like in Vegas, but making $20 million or something like that. But that's not a good place for me. I'll just say that. I'm glad I'm not put in that position.
No. Do you have any other like major losers? You know who else is in a bit of a mess of a situation is the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, that's a good point too.
They had to release a bunch of players. And so I was just listening to one of their insiders podcasts. They are still going to have an $86 million dead cap hit this season.
Yeah, and according to overthecap.com, they have it at 77, so maybe they've made a move or something like that. Yeah. But it's the highest by far. Just to your point earlier about the Browns, that because everyone remembers the Watson thing, so their dead money thing was 50 million, which felt like a lot. It was 54 million. So, and I was like, oh man, that's crazy, until I saw the 77 for that's
but that's dead money. Watson's not dead money. Watson's not dead money. He's actually still on the roster.
I guess so, yeah.
Right?
So, yeah.
Dead is players that aren't even on your roster.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying. Watson might as well be part of that dead money because he's not playing.
Yeah. No, but you're right. That's not good for the Niners.
Yeah. So
and they've lost a lot of players. Yeah.
Well, and I think this is a 2-part being a loser is the Niners. They spent over 300 million last year, and none of it worked. They dumped a bunch of money on Ayuk. He got injured, didn't play. Yep. They dumped a bunch of money on McCaffrey. He didn't play. On Trent Williams, he had a so-so season, sort of in and out of the lineup. They backed up the truck, poured money on a bunch of players who didn't do anything. Yep. And it should be a lesson to all these other teams. Don't do this. I'm now starting to see it as you spend money on a franchise quarterback if you have one. So Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, these type of guys, they deserve whatever the number is, Burrow, and then you literally just figure it out for the rest of the team, but nobody gets those massive deals. The minute they paid Bosa, he was like, eh.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
it's
just
tough.
hamstrings your whole team. They got to start viewing this almost like a college team. Like it recycles every 4 years. But all of these people demanding big contracts all at once, like the Niners went from making it to the Super Bowl and taking the Chiefs to the overtime to winning 6 games, and now an $86 million dead cap. What a disaster.
Yeah.
Like what a complete disaster. No wonder they're cleaning house now. They can't, they have to, they have no space.
Yeah. And that's the slight difference with the Texans. I felt the same way. The Texans lost 3 O-linemen, and it felt like they've lost a number of people. They only have about $6 million in cap space now, which is not good. It's near the bottom of the league in terms of space. They don't have a lot of, they have less dead money, like 38 million dead money, so that's fine. But at least the Niners have about 43 million in cap space. Like it feels like they could make some changes. I don't know what the Texans are going to do, because they've lost some people and they don't have a lot of maneuvering. So they're the ones those are the teams without a lot of cap space. Like they're the ones that really have to hit in the draft, because they're not going to have any other options.
Yeah, the Saints are in bad shape too.
Yep.
Again, just haven't managed the cap well. And think about that. The Saints they're I think over the cap limit, and they have, like, what's on that team that anyone would be like, oh, the Saints, they're just a couple players away. No, they're an entire rebuild away, and they have no cap space.
Yep.
Like what a mess. Like I wonder if this past 2 years with the inflation of salaries, like receivers getting paid all this money, and just how big it's all gotten, these defensive ends, these quarterbacks demanding hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I wonder if they're all starting to realize, oh, like we hit a bubble here. We can't keep doing this.
Well, it seems this year, and more than years in the past, first of all, I've paid more attention to it. But second, like, I'm surprised how many like 1-year deals there are, or like in the money amount, like the money amount for Darnold sounded about right. Like the money amount for the 1-year Bosa contract sounded about right.
At the time.
So yeah.
Bosa in
this one,
the Bills.
No, this time. So those, that seems about like there's been less of like the 250 million guaranteed Watson year. Like at first you're like, there's no way that's going to be good, so there's less of that. Like Garrett is on the borderline, because I can't believe they'll get value for that person and where they are and stuff. But like, it's hard to argue he wasn't worth it. Like he is the best defensive end. Like it, but Crosby is good, and he's
Crosby's in the top 3.
Yeah,
he's right there. But again, that's who's throwing the ball. Like you have no quarterback in Cleveland, and you have the 4th best quarterback in your division in the other team. You're not going anywhere with that type of construction. Also, Geno Smith cost way more money than Darnold.
Yes, and is like 7 years older. So which is
and
not
he's
nothing.
He's a career backup save for the last 3 or 4 years. He's just
but that's a decent amount. It was 3 years of like 4,000 yards a year or whatever. Like that, it's good. Like it's I stand by what I said in our last show, was that I think it's a good move for the Raiders, and I think that and it made it more interesting, and now you've got I think a pretty solid at least plan or approach in the draft, and you've got some free agency space to make it interesting, which is good.
I think they should still draft a young QB too. Can't just rely on Smith there. Might be almost like a Cousins Penix thing again. Just, you got your veteran, but you better get the future in there, because Geno Smith is not a long-term solution. He's a couple of years bridge.
Yeah. Last cap thing, this really turned into a cap show, but it was it does. Looking at the dead money thing, it was the Steelers have one of the least amount of 3 million in dead money, and I'm like, oh, they're a really well-run organization. Like they've had crappy quarterback, play the last year, but they're trying to make it work.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's like a good organization, or and then there's the Colts have 3 million in dead money, and I'm like, well, that's they've done. When I think of those teams, I can't think of many dumb moves, that something like that's happened. So,
other than the fact that the Steelers have no quarterback,
right? But they're, that might change.
As of the time of recording, it sounds like Russell Wilson won't be on the team either.
Right.
I guess he's technically still on the team, but all of the rumors are that they're not following. That he's not going to be there.
You know who has the most cap space in the NFL as of now, according to overthecap.com?
I don't know. Hit me.
Patriots, 100 million.
Oh, well, not anymore. They just spent $280 million this year. So I don't know if that's if that measurement there counts with them filling it all up now.
I feel like it's current, but I mean,
well, but this free agency, the Patriots have already spent $280 million in contracts. Now, obviously, that's not 1 year. That's like all the contracts put together.
yeah.
So I doubt that they still, after all of that spending, still have the $100 million. They probably came into this free. They came into it, I think, with the highest cap space for sure. But they've also spent the most total money. But that's, I don't know. We'll get to winners in a separate podcast. We're still focusing on the losers here. I don't know. I don't think there's any other teams that jump out to me as being like really didn't do. I mean, the Cowboys haven't really done anything. I know their fans think they should, but that doesn't, just because the fans want some big splashy namesake signing doesn't mean it's a good idea. But just watching other teams make moves, it can feel like the Cowboys fans, like, how come everybody else is doing something and we're not? Even though it might not be an obvious thing to do, it can look like, the in your own division, teams are doing things and you aren't doing, quote unquote, doing anything right now. I guess fans just must get antsy thinking, okay, people are making big moves. Like they just lost a DeMarcus Lawrence. So it's like, okay, so we're losing players. People are adding, like, what are we doing here? So they could, I think the Cowboys fans might feel like they're just sort of sitting by doing nothing. And that could feel like a loss right now. But
yeah, if you're a Cowboy fan, you'd be like, what's going to make my team better next year? Although I will say, like, I feel like the Buffalo fans were something like that too last year. Everyone was sort of thought that they were getting left behind, but they were not bad.
Good.
But, hey, so just to your point, you're right. That was all the cap numbers that I was throwing out there. That was as of February 27th, because that's when they officially reported it to the NFL.
Yeah. So but that's okay. But that's when they were coming in like that. So, and that's why the Patriots could do what they did. They just signed a pile of players. So that they're going to be interesting, but that's for the winners podcast. Anything else that you got for losers?
No, just it was the last thing we mentioned it briefly was the Texans also lost 3 linemen, which doesn't seem good from a team that didn't have great linemen, So it's that's a big hole to replace, and it's going to be tough to get free agents and draft picks to fill that up. So
yeah, and I also have one PFF puts the Green Bay Packers as a net loser here too.
Oh, so, that's an interesting call.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess some of the places they need to improve, they seem to have made a lateral step and just ended up spending more money on a lineman when they already had a decent lineman there. So they're kind of questioning, why would you spend even more money? And this is a guy that was just okay on the Aaron Banks on the 49ers. He wasn't anything to shout about on the 49ers. So why are you backing up $77 million for him? This happened a couple of years ago too, with another one of their linemen that the Broncos signed, but on the Niners, he was average. And then the Broncos gave him 70 something million or 60 something million. It's almost like, what makes you think he's going to be better on your team?
Yeah.
Like if the other team's like, forget it, we don't need him. So I don't know. There could be
I felt that way about Tunsil a little bit because he led the league in penalties and they're like, hey, we got our left tackle. And you're like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, but could be a side effect of that, like you said, a whole weak offensive line. But yeah, it's just hard. It's just hard to know. Obviously, these GMs think they're seeing something there that makes it worth the money. It could also just be salary inflation, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, you got anything else?
No. It's hard to say that the Colts are a winner for getting Daniel Jones to back up Richardson, just because, like, Richardson, I don't think he's going to play the whole season again. So you need someone there. And so it cost not much. So, but he's also hasn't done anything. But I mean, I'm like, oh, that's not a bad backup for,
he might be a starter. Yeah. Richardson is definitely, he has yet to play a full season.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just tapped out one game for a rest was, oh my God, that was a bad look.
No.
So I don't know. He's still exciting when he's in there, but he's starting to look like he might be a Band-Aid, which is not good. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Check back in, and we're going to cover winners in our next podcast. Catch you later.